Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kirk Lang here with Joe Cusano, retired professional referee and judge, who is about to enter the Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame on October 18th. Joe, how does it feel knowing in about a month you're going to be an inductee of the Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm deeply honored, very proud to accept this award, and humbly just to be a part of such an esteemed group, and I'm very thankful.
Did you ever think in your professional lifetime that this would even happen? Because at one point there was no Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame.
I was there in the beginning of the organizing of the Boxing Hall of Fame. You know, some of the gentlemen that you know began that, and I was there in some of those early meetings before there was no location. I had again the privilege to serve on the board a few years later for a couple of years, and I know how much work they put into it, who the MVPs are that make this a great event, and if you just could imagine how some of those meetings go when they are trying to agree on who should be some of the inductees. It can get a little hairy, but it's fun, and they're all brothers and sisters, and they enjoy being with each other.
You've had meetings on that, and now you are one of those
Yes,
people.
I was not a part of the board for the last, this past year or so. Last year I resigned from the board because I got more involved in amateur boxing again. I was approached, they are shy of officials. I had been away from the ring for about 6 years at that point. And I got involved, and I'm loving it. And you know, as long as I'm helping, and I can do that, and make sure that I always keep in mind these are amateurs now. So there's a big difference between my standard of where I'm going to allow pain and where I'm not going to allow pain.
Yeah.
I'm a pain facilitator, so I decide how much pain is involved.
In the pros, you were able to let the guys get away with a little bit more.
Well, it's a profession at that point, and they've got a lot of history, and they're not going to stop a fight until a fighter has reached that point where he's lost the fight. In the amateurs, it's a different standard. They're fighting for trophies. Mm-hmm. You don't want a kid not to come back again because the referee let him take a beating. We're not there in the amateurs to make professional fighters. We're there to bring discipline and all the other values that boxing brings to the young people, like other sports bring to young people. But not every amateur boxer wants to be a football player or a baseball player. They come from different backgrounds, and sometimes I don't think boxing is a loner sport. There is a team there, very much a team. But sometimes people work best when they're in the middle of that ring and they're by themselves. And I appreciate it. I have seen so much heroism and courage in my life, and not always by the boxer, but by some of these coaches and trainers who put so much time into this program. It's the same as it was 30 years ago when I was involved in the amateurs.
You still have the passion for the sport.
Yes.
You came back to amateur refereeing after some time away from the professional ranks.
Right.
What really brought you back?
Well, I never left the sport. Sometime during those years when I wasn't really involved in the sport, I was writing a book. I'd kept some memoirs over the years. That took a while and a lot of effort to decide how to approach that book. I was serving time with the board of directors. I was visiting boxing gyms. I was actually refereeing sparring sessions quite a bit to keep fit. And, I walk every day 4 or 5 miles a day. I'm 75 years old now. So, I'm challenging myself at this point as well.
Yeah.
But I would never just go into refereeing amateur boxing unless I thought I was helping the program and the kids.
You still get around the ring very well?
Pardon me?
You still get around the ring very well?
Yeah. I feel good.
Yeah. Is there more besides the walking 3 to 5 miles. Is there some other secret, some other health, dietary thing you do to stay so fit for your age?
Well, walking's my primary thing, but I have a boxing gym in my basement. I hit the backs, but I've had to lay up a little bit on that because I've got a rotator cuff problem. Then I go to the local gym down the street and do some weight training. I got to watch what I do there too. I've always stayed fit. I used to be a jogger for all the years when I was refereeing. I was jogging 7 miles a day, 4 or 5 days a week. And, I think it's aesthetics-wise, referees should look fit in that ring. And that's just not the aesthetics alone, but he's got to move around. He's got to be in position. I've seen some referees that are out of shape, but experience allows them to adapt to how they would limit, range themselves and position themselves. With me, I was always a guy that liked to move around. I wasn't that much of a stationary referee. I like to bounce a little bit. I like to move in and out. Everybody got a different style.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I was trained by some of the best referees in the world.
Arthur Mercani?
Arthur Mercani. Did a lot of shows with Arthur, private sessions with Arthur. When Arthur complimented you, you just knew. And, I've refereed with Steve Smoger. My very first night professionally was with Steve Smoger. Again, a very good mentor for me. Dick Flaherty, Mike Ortega. And I joined a solid team, which we all fed off each other. Johnny Callis, Ken Ezzo, Danny Schiavone, Mike Ortega. I mean, these guys, we were a team. We were this tri-state area quite a bit, working the casinos when the casinos were just coming in. I mean, I reffed in the tent at Mohegan Sun when they had the tent. So opportunity was there. I was lucky, definitely lucky. But I took advantage of the opportunity. I've had, I've had people that supported me. Gaspar Ortega, Sean Malone Sr. These were in those early days when I needed that encouragement to move forward.
The great Gaspar Ortega, one of the mainstays of 1950s televised boxing. Tell us how he helped you or encouraged you. Give us one tidbit about Gaspar.
Well, Gaspar lives in my hometown, and I didn't really know that. I mean, I heard it, but I didn't know that. And then one day my father calls me up, and he says, come to the house right now. So I go to the house, and Gaspar Ortega is sitting at my family's kitchen table speaking fluent Italian to my Italian parents, who they were raised here, but their parents were Italian from Italy, so they grew up in Italian-speaking households, and they were just amazed at how fluid. But Gaspar had traveled all over the world, refereed in Italy against Nino Benvenuti. I happened to be watching that fight on TV and with my father, and here he was sitting in my room. Now, why was he there? I had a brother that had a drug problem for a lot of years, and he had been in and out of different rehabs. And Gaspar ran a drug program in New Haven, Project Moore. Did a lot of great work for a lot of great people, and did for my brother. And he personally took my brother home from that program when he graduated from that program, and that's what he was doing there. My father didn't know that Gaspar was he knew who Gaspar was. My father was a huge boxing fan, turned me on to boxing, so he certainly knew who Gaspar was. But we didn't know that Gaspar was running the drug program that my brother was in until that day. So talking with Gaspar, and he recognized my passion, and he introduced me to Sean Malone. Sean Malone and I became close, personal friends over a period of time. And Sean was very active in the amateurs. He introduced me to Lou Bogash, and it just began there. From that point, I was put in the hands of Ken Ezzo. Ken stuck around for a little while, and then he went into the pros, and I became the chief of officials in the amateurs.
So what really sparked your desire to become a referee?
It wasn't always to be a referee. It was just I loved boxing so much. I knew I couldn't fight. I tried that. I had a couple of, amateur bouts back in the late 50s in the New Haven Boys Club when it was called the AAU, but that didn't last. But the passion was there. My father was a huge boxing fan. I mean, my first big fight was Floyd Patterson, Ingemar Johansson 2, closed circuit at the New Haven Arena. That was in 1960. I was 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I went most of my life never think I'd have any role in boxing. I actually wrote some articles like you do, but I only wrote a few. I thought it might even go that way. I spent a little time pursuing the thought of promoting. I did put some effort into that, but I knew that wasn't where I wanted to be. It really wasn't until I met Gaspar, and he thought that that's where I would find my niche in boxing. And Sean Malone, and that's when I started to shift focus from thinking about promoting to refereeing. It fit me more. And then when I met Gaspar's son, Mike always drove home safety first. Mike grew up in a boxing ring. That was his playpen. His father went off to do battle. His main thought always was protect the fighter, protect the weakened fighter. And he would drive that home to me. So I went in with great mentors, and that never ever left me. Was the reason I'm in there is to protect the fighter.
And the great referee Mike Ortega, son of Gaspar, when did you first meet Mike?
The first night I actually met Mike was at Mohegan Sun at a fight. He was not refereeing yet. He was moving along, making moves to get his referee license. I had not. I had just met his father, shortly before all that, so I was just starting to think that way. But Mike had light years away from where I was, even though he wasn't even a pro yet, and I wasn't an amateur yet. He'd had all that solid experience of growing up in the field. His best friend growing up was like his older brother was Joe Cortez.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah,
I met Joe Cortez.
He was very close with the Ortega family.
Yeah, very. I got pictures of me with the whole family, with Joe. Again, one night they called me up, asked me to come to their house, to Gaspar's house, to watch a fight, and I went there and Joe Cortez was sitting there. So it was me, Joe Cortez, Mike, and Gaspar. And I'm a young amateur referee. I'm in my glory.
How old are you at that time?
Well, I didn't do my first my first amateur bout until I was 44 years old. I was an old rookie. I got my pro license on my 49th birthday. My first pro show was my 49th birthday. I co-refed with Johnny Callis and Steve Smoger. I had about 5 years under my belt as an amateur official, but I was doing the top level amateurs at that point. I did New York Golden Gloves. I refereed in Madison Square Garden at that point with the Golden Gloves for a few years. I did national Golden Gloves tournaments all over the country, Olympic qualifying events. I trained at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs as elite chief of officials. So by the time I went into the pros, I did have a high level of amateur background and experience.
Do you think part of your story, Joe, lets people know that it's never too late to get into something new? Tell us about that.
Absolutely. My life changed at that point. My best years of my whole life took place after my 44th birthday.
A lot of people think their life ends after high school, college,
I'm 75. I'm still a part of all this. In this past 2 years, my movie came out. It had a role in the Featherweight. I had a book that I wrote. I'm getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. I mean, dreams are coming true right now. So, I changed my life in my midstream.
It's a great story because a lot of people think when they hit their 40s or their late 40s that their life is over.
Yeah. Well, I was settled. I had a good family. I had a good wife. I had a good business. My mindset was focused on all that and growing my business. And my business may have suffered because of my dedication to boxing, because I lost my focus a bit there. And my focus just went entirely in the direction of boxing. Once I got involved, I have to thank my wife and my kids, who probably have suffered a little bit because of my devotion to boxing. But as I've met people in boxing, yourself included, I find that that's not unusual.
Yeah.
You know, we've all done that. John Scully once said to me,